city or a town, a frown. The business of a crown, of the living that abounds, of the church and the announcements. It's doing what counts, the underground sound in a city or a town, a frown. The business of a crown, of the living that abounds, of the church and the announcements. It's doing what counts. The underground sound is the voice within, to give ear to the spirit and to flee from sin, to live for Jesus and the praise of him, by not selling out for the praise of men, to do whatever it takes, no matter what the cost, to keep pushing up the weight, carrying the cross, straight bench pressing sin, defend the word that lacks, and your best mention him, or then you gon' die. Cause the underground sound in a city or a town, the business of a crown, of the living that abounds, in the church and the announcements. It's doing what counts, the underground sound in a city or a town, the frown.
Oh, guys, I've had the weirdest day over here. So my buddy Scott Davenport, known him for like 10 years, he goes out and writes a book. Now, I don't even know if Scott Davenport can read a book, but he decides he's going to go out and write a book, allegedly. What's that mean? He got a few dollars saved up and he sent it to an editor? Okay, so he writes this book and he sends it to me, and he asked me to, hey, man, can you help me get the word out? It's like, Scott, that's not really what I do. I don't really get the word out. Like, I have a different audience with my relationship. I mean, I would tell him, this is one of the worst books I've ever read. It's edited right. Most of the periods are where they're supposed to be. There's a lot of punctuation errors. I mean, this book is really bad. It's like remarkably bad. My mother used to play once a month. She would go and play a game called Bunko. And she would always come home, and I'd always make a deal with her and say, Mom, you got to wake me up when you get home. Just let me know that you're home. And she always would. And she used to win something called the Booby Prize. And I was too young to know what the Booby Prize was. All I know is my mom came home with a gift, and it was kind of cool. Well, when I got older, I found out that the Booby Prize goes to whoever plays Bunko and gets last place. If you're the absolute worst player, they give you a prize as a gift. My buddy Scott Davenport wrote the Booby Prize.
What are you reading?
It's not my type of book.
We're live and alive on the Underground Sound. I'm here with the Golden Eagle, Tom Platz. How you doing, brother?
Good, Scott. Good. And how are you?
I'm doing great, man.
Good to be here.
I'm super pumped, man. And I actually got a story. So when I was, let's see, I'm 37 now, and when I was,
You're a baby, man.
I'm a baby. When I was, when I was 19, you know, when I was younger, I wanted to be a bodybuilder. That's what I wanted to do with my life. I was like,
Sure.
I'm going to be a pro bodybuilder, and, you know, I want to be like Tom Platz or Arnold Schwarzenegger, or Dave Draper, right? Like all you guys. And I did a teenage bodybuilding show, and I kind of, for me, the guys, I did the teenage Mr. San Jose competition.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I when I was backstage, I was like, these guys do not look like Tom Platz and Dave Draper, right? I was like, this isn't what I thought it was. And so I was like, I'm going to, you know, I'm not going to be able to do this, you know, and just because it wasn't what I wanted. You know, like if Classic Physique was around back then, I think I would have stuck with it, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I know what you're saying. That Classic Physique's opening up a lot of doors. For people. I always compare it to, like, we were all raised with hot rods compared in bodybuilding. Hot rods is an analogy. And now it's funny cars, and they're bigger, like, you know, crazier than ever, and they do 4-second quarter miles, so to speak. We all want to go back to the sexy Corvettes. We like the Blue Metal Flake Stingray era in terms of bodybuilding. And that's what I see. The majority of the world tells me this, you know.
Yeah, well, that's a great way to explain it, actually, because that's exactly what I want to say. Is what you just said.
I like that. We love the funny cars. It's fun, you know, to see something that's horrendous, ridiculous, bigger, freakier. Oh my God, I can't believe it actually stays on the track for 4 seconds, and you know, oh my God. flames coming out of there, nitro, your eyes are watering. And, you know, that's nice. But the sexy Corvette, the Blue Metal Flake 68 Stingray, oh my God, that's sexy, man. That's life. That's art, you know. And it's all art. It's all art. But sometimes art disturbs, and it motivates and inspires, and sometimes it disturbs. And, you know, with all due respect to the top guys, I admire them and I watch them and know them all. But let's get back to the Stingrays, man.
Yeah, it detoured me where I was like, all right, well, I'm not even gonna pursue it, you know, because it just I couldn't explain it like you just did, but I just kind of like I was like, man, it doesn't look like what it's just not. I wanted to be like athletic and I don't know, look good, you know, and these guys were just kind of mass monster-esque kind of dudes, and so I was like, well, what am I going to do? And I kind of realized that what I really loved about it was really the lifestyle more than, you know, competition. I didn't necessarily want to be competitive. I was like, I really love the whole lifestyle. So I decided, I was like, okay, well, I'll be a personal trainer. And so I signed up for a 3-day course with the ISSA, and I went to it it was in San Francisco, and I get there. And my instructor is Tom Platz, dude. And it was like, it was the most mind-boggling for me. I was like, I cannot believe this. This is unreal, you know. And
thanks, man. Thank you.
People say this all the time, but for me, you know, you were like totally like my hero. And I had a million things to say, and I saw you, and I came up and I just said like, hi. Like I couldn't say anything.
I know how that feels because I hold a lot of people like that. And people are people, and thank you very much. You know, and I'm honored by your comments, and it's very kind of you to express that. You know, I'm the same way around film stars, or like I mean, Magic Johnson was in the gym one day, and he wanted to say hi. I'm like, you're saying hi to me? You want to meet me? You know, I mean, he's Magic Johnson. You know, I mean, oh my God. But hey, you know, thank you very much. I still remember that seminar, believe it or not.
Wow.
You know, I did, probably 50 to 100 of those a year. You know, I was recently retired at that time, and they were looking for somebody with the educational background that could teach a course like that. And I was like, and it was fun. It was very meaningful. And after about 15, 20 years, it got to be that there weren't guys like you anymore in the class. You know what I mean, Scott?
Yeah.
A bunch of guys in college looking for a career, and I can make good money being a personal trainer, and they were into the book work, and they never had any real field or gym experience, and the course was twisted and fragmented and sort of, lack of a better word, I can try to think of a good word, bastardized to a certain degree with all due respect. So it was time for me to get out and do my own thing. And now the squat clinics around the world, and being a life coach, and I spend most of my days in Europe. At least recently I've stayed home a lot because Europe's closed down to Americans as far as COVID, all this stuff going on. So I had the opportunity to train again. I had the mental space and the time to really devote to training again, sort of the bandwidth available to me, if you will. And so in the last year and a half, I gained 50 pounds, and I'm squatting big and doing stuff, and I'm going to be 66 this weekend. And I'm like, what? It's life. I feel like I'm 25 again, Wow. And it's great to be back in the gym and lifting big iron, and it just, I mean, I don't want to go back and set the same records I did back when I was a kid. No, I mean, and I realize that that's not what I want to do, but it's still fun to put 315 on your back and boom, 20 quick buried reps, and perfect reps, and I'm just like, okay, I'm still alive. It's like taking the car out of the garage, revving it up a little bit, and putting it back in the garage. I'm not going to race it anymore. And again, another analogy about cars,
Yeah. Well, that was your thing, because I remember I got that picture of you in the seminar or the class. I got the picture where you were with your Corvette, and you said to a great trainer. I think you wrote on it. That thing, I don't know what I lost it at some point in my life, unfortunately. Which
it's funny. That was my Corvette. It was I used to back during those days, it was the big money days. I was making the kind of money that was pretty stupid. I mean, I went through millions of dollars of sort of the same kind of athlete doesn't know what to do with all the money and terrible at money management. That was me. I never really admitted that. But, in my later years, I'm going like, I was pretty stupid. I blew a lot of cash on, a lot of stuff that I didn't have to or shouldn't have and planned for retirement. But, things are good now. Things are really good. And I just like to work. I like to train. I like to go on the road. I like to go to a seminar and do a seminar in a squat clinic every day. I like to go to 10 countries a month. And it's like, I feel like a rock star, I like that.
Yeah.
That's the way it was back in the day when I was competing in Mr. Olympia all those years. I mean, first of all, it took me about 3 years to accept the fact that I could stand next to the guys that I had on my bedroom wall all those years, and my idols,
Yeah.
And then after about 3 years, I'm like, okay, I'm here to do business. I deserve to be here. Let me show you how it goes according to me. That was 81. And, I was, all the judges who did or didn't vote for me, they all wanted me in their country at least once and willing to pay me crazy money. Just bring the red trunks and ride like the wind. We want you in our country. So I spent years guest posing. I never won the Olympia, but thank God I certainly lived the Mr. Olympia lifestyle and made more money than I knew what to do with. Okay, and that's another story.
Now, you said your inspirations were Dave Draper and Arnold. Did you know Dave Draper?
Yes, I did. Well, when I was in college, okay, first of all, I've been training for 56 years, squatting for 56 years, okay? Never had a knee problem in my life, by the way.
Wow.
High bar squats, not a powerlifting variation, but I believe there's less knee stress, and I teach people quad dominant squatting. It's changed my life. It gave me a life. I owe everything to that squat rack, okay? It gave me everything. I don't want to get crazy with that, but when I was in college, my dad said to me when I was 9, okay, you can do this bodybuilding thing. I'm 9 years old now. He goes, what's your career concept? What's your career plan? And I gave it to him in writing. He said, okay, after you get your couple of degrees, your BA and your BS or whatever, he says, okay, you can probably work on your master's when you go. And basically, he said, hey, go to California then. So I waited till I was, 18, 19 to go to California and study with the masters. My goal, my intention was to study with the best in the world. And I figured I can't do that, back in Michigan. And so I had the opportunity to train with Arnold every day for 30 years, and he was thrilled to train with. He didn't speak English that well at that time, and he's like, Tom, what are you doing here? I said, I told you I'm coming out to train with you. And he's like, he was like, Tom, this is America, and in broken English. I said, I know that. And he says, well, we can do anything we want to here. You know that, right? I'm like, this is the guy I want to train with. Yeah. It's like, you want to become president? Why not? Okay. And so every weekend, somebody was winning a bodybuilding show, and it was like, we just expected to do well. And for me, I don't think it was really about talent. It was really more about a mindset. And the leg thing was a gift from God. It really was, like the whole leg thing. I didn't plan that. In fact, I tried training legs less, and they got better and better and better, which is an interesting thing, and I couldn't hide them. And when I first started squatting at Gold's Gym back then, nobody squatted. They stored all the old benches in the squat rack area, and I'd be doing, reps of 400, 500 pounds, 15, 20 reps, and they're like, you shouldn't do that. It's bad for you. And I said, well, thank you for your criticism. I was trained by Olympic lifters back in Michigan, some of the best Olympic lifters in the world. So to make a long story short, I had some of the best teachers in the world. I'm standing on the shoulders of the best of the best of the best. So I have to give them credit. Those are my teachers. And I'm still in contact with today. Some of them have passed away. Some of them are continuing to train. Dave Draper now, God, I remember being 9 years old and seeing him on the beach with a girl on each arm and a girl on each leg, And I'm thinking, wow, that's the kind of job I want, And I was in a drugstore looking at this Muscle and Power magazine. It was called Muscle and Power before it was called Muscle and Fitness. And I told the story many times, but the image, and I talked to the photographers that took those photos, it changed my life. And at age 10, I was dedicated like a priest, becoming a priest or not becoming a nun. This is what I'm going to do with my life. I had no doubt. I had the opportunity to go to Princeton. I turned it down. I said, I'm not going to Princeton. I'm going to go to college elsewhere because I don't see myself as an Ivy League character. I want to be a bodybuilder. I want to train with the best in the world. So yeah, Dave Draper was there. You know, the long blonde hair, the girls, the beach, the surfboards. Money wasn't in it quite yet, but you know, we trained every day in the gym. I trained like at 7 to 9, and then we'd all go to the beach afterwards. And there were no suntan beds. You had to go in the salt water to tighten the skin up. And so, you know, Frank Zane taught me to use baby oil and iodine. My tan was always on point. My tan was perfect. And back in those days, you had to work on your tan as much as you did your body. You know, it was a different kind of mentality. But Dave continues to be an inspiration to me to this day. Dave, however, and my two mentor figures, as I just sort of briefly outlined, Dave Draper and Arnold. Draper was like, he was embarrassed to be Mr. America. Okay. He trained for himself, by himself, early in the morning. And he really didn't like the notoriety and being popular. Even though he was starring with major film stars in Tony Curtis movies, Don't Make Waves back in the 60s, he did life. So Dave sort of retired and went to Santa Cruz, and he was a hermit. He liked to sort of carve wood carvings in the woods by himself. And I go, I can't do that. That's not me. Arnold, on the other hand, was a Terminator in real life. You know, like, what do you want to do with your life? Let's do it now. You're going to be dead soon. You can sleep later too. Let's go. And so every day was like, what dream do you want to realize today? And it was, you know, of course, the training, but other things too. And I was introduced to the social elite, you know, presidents, and you know, I'd fly to Hyannisport with them, and you know, I'm like, I didn't even know who people were back then. I just was a bodybuilder. You know, I wasn't into politics at that time. But those two people really inspired me. And I, after a while, I said, you know, I really don't see myself as being as ruthless as Arnold. He's a successful businessman. He's ruthless, you know, in sport and in life. And I said, I'm in the middle between Dave Draper and Arnold, somewhere in the middle in terms of my two mentor figures. But those two guys continue to this day to inspire me. You know, I remember training with Dave, and my first girlfriend, his dad, her dad worked with Dave. Dave was helping him to build stuff in the carvings and carpentry and woodworking. And so I was like, wow, this is the beach. This is California. I'm coming from back east, but then I dreamed about it. I used to look at the snow when I was 9, look out my bedroom window when I lived in Pittsburgh, look at the snow, pretend it was the beach, you know, in the sand. And I mean, I had a clear, super clear vision of what I wanted my life to be at age 9. I wish everything else in my life was that clear. You know? Okay, but it's almost spooky to me to even tell you about that right now, Scott, because, I mean, and I talk to young kids all the time, and I motivate. My job is to be a life coach, and first thing I say is, what do you really want to do with your life? It's pretty soon it's going to be over. What do you really want to do? And a lot of people go, I don't know. And so I try to get them to be quiet for 15 minutes, an hour, not answer the phone and not be distracted. It's really hard for young people to be quiet. Because when you're quiet, answers come. When I was quiet when I was a little kid in my bedroom in Pittsburgh, man, I knew exactly the kind of life I wanted to live in California. And it happened. It became realized. I remember, of course, I had to have some positive affirmations. And I remember I was 10, maybe 10 and a half, and I'm on my mother's makeup table. They have makeup tables, ladies have makeup tables. And I was small. She had a little chair, and I'm standing in her mirror with the Muscle and Fitness magazine going, hey, Mom, I look like this, don't I? You know, and she passed by with a laundry basket. She said, oh, yeah, honey, you look like that. You look just like those guys. I go, no, that was enough for me. Somebody thinks I could do this. That's all I need to know. I'm in. I'm done. Let's go. Let's get my degrees. Let's get to California. Let's win the America, the universe, and let's turn pro to compete in Olympia. And let's make the big money that Arnold made. And it was there. It was all, you know, get to move into the neighborhood next to Ferrigno and Arnold and all that stuff. And then to make a long story short, I got to tell you, and I've been thinking about this lately, when I had the most stuff, when I had the most BMW, the Porsches, the house on the East Coast, the house on the West Coast, you know, and the beautiful wife, you know, looked, you know, all that stuff without getting too detailed. I was like, I wasn't the most happiest as I am now. is a weird revelation. I mean, I had the opportunity to work for the WWE, for Vince McMahon. Trump was his friend. I got to know Trump, and I felt uncomfortable making millions of dollars. I felt that this isn't, I don't feel, something was about it bothered me. And at age 66 now, I realized that was a interesting time. I used to fantasize about having my own one-bedroom apartment again, not having all the houses, and all the problems associated. When you make big money, you have big problems sometimes, and I sure did. It was a big distraction. But I enjoy. As a matter of fact, because of COVID, I'm in a one-bedroom apartment right now, which is wow. My dream came true. My fantasy came true again.
Yeah.
And so when I talk, it's really not about me anymore, Scott. I'm not looking to make millions of dollars again. I'm not looking for position. I'm 66 years old, and I'm like, what can I give back? What people can I work with to really show them how to get there? And a lot of guys in Europe, I work with in Europe, and I tour in Europe, and they're world-class athletes and tremendous bodybuilders. And I tell them, you got to think bigger. You got to dream bigger. You're just thinking like 4 countries. But you got to realize they're raised in socialistic environments. It's about community, not about self. So it's like talking to a Muslim about the Catholic faith. They've been raised differently. And so I'm making some headway. Some of the guys I work with are now talking about the Olympia stage. I tell them, you should be on the world stage. I don't care how big you are in Hungary. You're not big enough. People don't know you outside of 4 countries. Why aren't you on the world stage? So I startle them, and of course I'm coming from Trump land and capitalism, and I don't think they quite know what to do with me, but they like the energy that I bring, and I like the energy that they have, and I love. I don't want any credit for anything I've done, and that's not my goal. And my goal was just to give something back to somebody. Bodybuilding gave me so much. Financial help, spiritual, physical. It's amazing what bodybuilding gave me. And now it's time to give something back. And I see that as very important and crucial in my existence today. And that's what drives me nowadays. It used to be, the gym, of course, and training, and then cars and collecting cars and doing things that you can do because you have the money. But I really have come to simplify my life and look at it in terms of what I can give back. And the funny thing is about it, when you give back, you get more. I remember Dorian Yates. I'm not claiming, I don't want to say that Dorian was my student, but he was in all my seminars when I was in England back in my heyday, back in the mid-'80s. He was an up-and-coming kid, and he was introduced to me as the next British champion. I'm thinking, okay, fine, great, But I said to him one time, I said, I want to walk on stage, and I imagine my mind having the stage bend, and I'm like, the judges drop their pencils and look at me and go, what the hell is this? And they've never seen any kind of muscle like that. That was my goal. And Dorian took that to heart, and that's been Dorian's how do I say it, his mantra all during his career. We often joke about it, I can tell you so many things, Scott. I remember offering Dorian $250,000 a year for 3 years. And I was with the WWE. Dorian won the Night of Champions. And he was really nobody yet. He's living in Birmingham, England. He was broke, borderline homeless, had a child and a new wife. And I said, look, I'm going to give you $250,000 a year right now. I just need you to sign here. He goes, Tom, I got to go home and think about it. And he did. And he called me back very reluctantly. He was sort of shy and heartbroken, like, Tom, I think and I believe that I can be Mr. Olympia. I said, okay.
Wow.
That's all I wanted to hear. I expect you to do that. Of course, when he won, we had no emails. We had no internet. I sent him a telegram. You said you're going to do it. You did. Congratulations.
That's incredible.
It's fun to be involved in the process. A lot of people did this. Frank Zane took me aside when I was 19 and said, hey, you have a body part that we all don't have, this leg thing. You should capitalize that. You should build your brand around your legs. I'm like, really? You think so? And then here I was with a couple of degrees, and I was certified to be a teacher in high school. He's teaching science and mathematics up the street at Santa Monica High, And I said, Frank, I just won the universe. I don't have any money left. I mean, I got a head of lettuce and a can of tuna fish left. I got to get a job. Can I teach with you? Who should I talk to? He goes, no. Don't get a job. Don't come to teaching. You don't have to. He says, in 2 months after the magazines come out, there was no Facebook or Instagram. When the magazines come out and people will know who you are, every promoter in the world, even in the free world, even the non-free world, is going to call you and want to see you guest post. And here's what you say, Tom. I write this down. This is your fee. This is how you expect it to be paid. We had no PayPal. It had to be send checks and all this stuff. But I remember waiting around for 2 months going, oh, Frank, I don't know, man. And I'm like, they're turning my electricity off. And all of a sudden, I'm making $3,000 and $4,000 a week in the first year.
Wow.
As a pro. And I'm like, holy smokes. Now out of college, I'm making 40, 50 grand a year. I'm like, oh my God. And so I'm like, I want to buy a Corvette, And I remember Gold's Gym at that time said to me, Tom, we'll offer you half of Gold's Gym, half ownership for $20,000.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, no. So I love this place, guys. This is my home. This is my sanctuary. But Gold's Gym, one little hardcore gym with 3 or 4 girls and 10, 12 guys. That was the fitness industry, And so I really had no business vision. And every time I see a Gold's Gym, I go, I could have owned half this whole thing around the world.
Wow.
And then I got another shot at it. And then about 10 years later, my neighbor, he goes, look, Tom, I'm developing a new business concept, a coffee shop concept. And I said, coffee? You can buy coffee anywhere. You can buy coffee in Denny's. He wanted me to invest in coffee shop. He called it Starbucks.
No way. No way.
So I missed on that too. So every time I see a Starbucks or Gold's Gym, I could have owned this place.
Wow.
But hey, that's okay, and money comes and goes. But the way you affect other people, that lasts forever,
Yeah.
Forever. Money comes and goes. I had money come. I blew $1 million in a year. My wife's like, what's wrong with you? You're nuts. You're blowing money like it's crazy. And I did. I had a sort of like a drug problem, not with money. I never had a drug problem. But I can't really, once I get money, I want to blow it. I want to buy stuff,
Yeah.
And so I have to control that now. And I realize money management is never been my expertise. But I teach this to young kids now. They're just winning the first Olympia and second Olympia, and they're making $500,000 a year for the first time. They go, "What do we do now? I can pay the electric bill. What else am I going to do with it? What should I do with this extra money laying around?" And so, and that's some of the things we're trying to teach young bodybuilders as far as how to invest, how to manage money, even how to dress, how to do interviews. I mean, I was raised in a neighborhood like Jack Nicklaus is, the golfer.
Yeah.
And he was on our dining room wall. Jack Nicklaus was the god of golf, So I was raised with golf and being around golfers. And I walked the course with Tiger Woods, and he approached the first tee. And he looked at every crowd. He looked at the ball. I'm like, that's the same look and feeling I have when I'm getting ready to squat. It's exactly the same thing. So, it's so many situations. I'm going through a lot of interviews I did over the last year or so. And I'm pulling things out right now because I remember these things and they were very meaningful to me. And it's been a great life. I'm not done yet. I'll probably be doing seminars and teaching and being a life coach probably for the next 10, 15 years. I'll probably get somebody to drive me to and from the airport eventually because I'm getting too old to do all that. I'll get a little. I don't know. I'm just thinking, But I really believe that if you want something bad enough, you can do it. You have to do the work. But if you can't let anybody tell you can't do something. If they try to tell me I'm not good enough, and the most important thing is you can't tell yourself you can't do something. And I was a genetically inferior bodybuilder. I had a small waist. I didn't have the wide shoulders. I wasn't tall enough. But I believed that my position was in this business. I believed it so much that Zane and Arnold and Draper and Ed Corney, they took me aside and said, "Hey, we believe in you, kid. We believe in you." I'm like, wow. And Arnold, nobody ever challenged Arnold as far as being popular. I got to tell you, when he retired from bodybuilding, he said, Tom, do you want to go out on the road? All the exhibitions and shows, I'm going to tell him to call you. All the work I'm doing in bodybuilding, it's yours now if you want it. So I'm like, man, I'm just out of college with a business degree. I'm creating a brand. Now I'm traveling every weekend, making between $4,000 and $5,000. I'm in Europe 4 months out of the year, making extra stupid money. And I'm like, damn, And Arnold was very, very helpful. But I wanted his job. How do I don't mean that in a negative way or egotistical way. But when somebody works for a corporation, the best thing the CEO would like to hear is, I want your job, and I'm willing to do the work to get your job. You want that kind of challenge. And so Arnold was very influential. He taught me. He introduced me to things. He was I still see him, and I talk to him about a lot of things. And he says, one day I said to him the other day, I said, I think it's more fun now than it used to be. And he goes, no, but everything hurts more. I go, yeah, I know. But, it's been a dream that came to reality when I was a little kid. And I continue, I don't know why or how, I continue to have the same love and passion and joy. When I go up to the squat rack and just setting up and stretching, I'm like, wow, this is like, getting your 427 Hemi doing a race. I get excited. My heart rate goes up, and it's like thrilling. And I make myself go the distance. And sometimes I'm like, man, maybe I should stop pushing so hard. And that lasts about maybe a week, and I'm back to it. But like I think I did 275 to 35 2 days ago when I'm having trouble walking now.
Wow.
But boy, it feels good. It feels so wonderful to be sore and can't walk. I'm like, thank God. It's like I'm high. I'm actually high from squatting for 2 weeks afterwards. The adrenaline, the endorphins, and just now I'm like, ooh, I feel the repercussions. It's going to take me a little bit longer to recover, but I'm sorry, Scott. I got on a tangent. I'll let you direct the questions.
No, that's great. One thing I just wanted to, go on that path towards is, so recently I actually saw a post kind of out of nowhere, and I had no idea, I had no clue that Dave Draper apparently has a really, really good relationship with God. I just saw this random post where he was like, I've been walking with God for the last 30 years or something. And I was like, wow, I didn't know that. And that's something that I just find very interesting, and I'm very interested in with you guys. And I know you've talked a lot about God, and it just sounds like God gave you this path in life because you just saw it so clearly, and then you had this crazy belief and stuff. And I kind of just wanted to ask you just if you could talk about that, God, your relationship with God in your life. And you also talked about the squat rack being the altar for you. Yeah. And I thought that was so cool. I was like, this is the most, I don't know, it's the most inspiring stuff I've ever heard, where it makes me just feel I don't know, I don't even know how to explain it, but it some kind of, and when you talk about art too, you talked about how art, you want to see more art and less science, and I was like, that is so cool. Could you talk about that stuff?
Yeah. I started as a powerlifter. I won the Michigan State Championships and the Senior State Championships. Got a nice trophy or a beer mug and put it on my mantle at home, or when I was in high school. And when I won the Mr. Michigan that same year in 1975, all of a sudden Joe Reeder's calling me, and I'm for photo shoots in Florida and for the West Coast. I'm like, so in all honesty, I feel a little bit bad saying this, but I sold out to strength training. I sold out to powerlifting, and I was really a powerlifter pretending to be a bodybuilder all those years.
Yeah.
It was more the glamour of the girls. Nowadays a bodybuilder stays in their house and they eat too much and take too much and can't talk, and they train all the time, and they walk around with sweats, and it's like they're zombies.
Yeah.
In my day, I'm like the girls, the Corvettes, the beach. Wow, what a life! And bodybuilding gave me so many friends and wives and ex-wives and girlfriends, and around the world there's a big community of love for what we do, our craft. It's huge. I can go to any country in the world. I even went to to Eastern Europe back when the wall was up, and they're like, "Come, we love you." It's great, It's just amazing. And so initially it was the powerlifting, which I felt I was much more talented for. Okay, talent is just an attitude for me. I don't know what my talent is, but I believe your attitude monitors talent. Your attitude monitors talent, and I had this God gift and this attitude. Like my dad sort of started. He said that when I was in high school, you're not getting straight A's like your brother and sister, but you got to make sure you give it everything you got, and that's the most important thing. That's what they expect of you. And then remember the football coach, kicking me on the butt and saying, "You're nothing. You'll never be nothing, Tom Platz." You hear me? I'm like, "Whoa, that's unacceptable." I was just like shaking, vibrating. And so it was a great learning experience. And years later, of course, the football team members and the team called, they emailed me when email first came out. They said, "Are you the same Tom Platz that Coach Smith talks about?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And tell him, "Thank you very much for everything he's done for me." And a lot of kind of situations like that. I thought it seriously when I was a young man at 10, 11 years old about being a priest.
Wow.
And I thought, okay, I liked it. There's so many things that in my lifetime, even then, I'm like, wow, you cut your arm and it heals by itself. I'm like, oh my God, whoever made this body of ours, oh my, unbelievable creation,
Yeah.
And your car doesn't heal itself. If you bang your car up, you have to get fenders replaced and new engines, and your body rejuvenates itself. So I remember thinking at a very early age that I'm being directed by a higher power, by God. Imagine being 9 years old and being this sure of what you want to do with your life.
Yeah.
What the hell was that?
Yeah, it's amazing.
And I couldn't deny it. I would lay up and it was so overwhelming. And I knew, and I talked to God, and I said, maybe the priest thing is, I think you can do more as a bodybuilder. And all of a sudden that door opened up, and things happened in my life, and I believe luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And I just kept moving that way. But I had the spirit, and I associated my spirit with other people's spirits, like Drapers and Arnolds and Cornies and Zanes. Imagine going to one gym in the morning, everybody from all over the world's in the gym at the same time, training together with tremendous enthusiasm, love, passion. Oh my God. I didn't need to eat. I didn't need to sleep. I was like, this is heaven on earth right here, Gold's Gym, And then we went to the beach for 2 or 3 hours because getting your body conditioned, a tan, the salt water. And, that was my daily existence for 25 years. And, and then competing for they had the Mr. Olympia every year in September because it was the end of the suntan time. The sun wasn't available in California now, so it's time to go compete, because I couldn't continue to stay tan and use the salt water to my advantage, that kind of thing. It was all organic back then. It wasn't nothing, there were steroids around, but it was never like hormonal warfare or pharmacological stuff. I think right now I think we're in a pharmacological quagmire.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think I had the best results taking the least drugs, and that's a couple of guys were saying that you were interviewing on the thing you sent me, which is true. It's absolutely true. It's never been about the drugs. You can make it about the drugs and train less and hope you might get there, but to me it was all about, I believe that muscles, you could remodel the body. I sincerely believe that you could remodel the body. I later learned about hyperplasia, and I go, yes, hyperplasia, you can develop more fibers, most definitely. So I developed a system of training, which was, if I'm going to change my body, it's got to be heavyweights, and it's going to be a lot of reps, both. And nobody, and I just sort of trained for reps for a good 10 years before I could learn how to do reps. I was a powerlifter. 3 and 5 reps was high reps for me. To do 20s and 30s and 50s, it took me 10 years to get to that point where I could mentally and physically alter some of my conditioning and my ability to what's the word one uses, my metabolic function to accommodate that, if you will.
Wow.
You can't change your fiber type, and you can certainly change a lot of things. So I guess I refused to be a victim to my genetics and my thought process. And again, this is from God, man. I said one day to somebody, I'm not going to be a victim to my genetics. My genetics are going to be a victim to me. I'm like, where did that words come from? I mean, how in the hell does a teenager come up with these kind of words? And I believed it. I sincerely believed it. And so it wasn't really, my career chose me. I didn't choose the career. It chose me. And I like to teach that now. I like to talk to people and help them get to where they want to go, because it's God gave it to me. I mean, it was nothing more than that. It's an apparent, easy to see gift. I mean, it just, wow. And the altar, the squat rack became my altar. I genuflect in front of the squat rack. Okay? It's like, it's the same thing. It's like that's where God lives. The Holy Spirit is there.
Wow.
And
yeah.
So when I did 30 reps or 30, I forget what it was. My training partner was counting. When I put on, I'm 66. I haven't been training, the same way I was before. But so 275 for 35, 40 reps was like, I gotta push it, But I remember hitting about 25 reps, going. All of a sudden, my training partner said, "Hey, get in the zone." And all of a sudden, it's like this euphoria came over me. Like, wow, rep, boom, boom, boom. Breathing was perfect. The execution was perfect. And finally, at 40 reps, I'm exhausted. The guys went back into the rack, but it's like, oh my God, it's not painful. It's like heaven. I'm like, what a place to visit, And I have to do that at least once a month.
Wow.
It's Watts, even to this day. So I may miss a few things. If I do, please guide me back. But I've always, of course, I always believed bodybuilding was an art, a science, and a sport. The art, the craft of bodybuilding was much like the theater, which I studied, acting. It was a deep-rooted craft. It had tremendous meaning to all the independent thinkers of the 60s, and Reg Park and Dave Draper and all those guys that taught me. There was no coaches. You had somebody telling you what to do. You had to figure it out yourself and show people what you did with your own independent mind, You can't, like nowadays, I see these coaches. I had no young guy. Just do it for me, and I'll pay you to do it for me. I don't have time to think about the diet or the training. Just do it for me. I'll show up. I'm like, that's not the way it works, man. You got to have an inner devotion and an inner connection with your higher power. I mean, squatting for reps is, if you don't have a connection with your existence and your higher power, and if you don't know God, you're not gonna be nothing. You'll never get there.
Wow.
Those last 15, 20 reps, I don't know where they came from. I was done at 15, 20, and it's like somebody gave me something comes over me in the gym, which is like, oh my God, it's like I'm able to take and take and take and take from the gym. It's like playing guitar. You don't have to give that much. You do give a lot, but you get so much in return. You're getting more than you give. That's what bodybuilding, the art of bodybuilding, has been like for me. A lot of musicians will say this about their musical instruments. But at this point in my life, it's more about not taking anymore and about giving back to the industry. So everything I do, I think through. And of course, being an old financial player, I have to go, okay, it's not about the money. It's really about doing the right thing, and really pursuing and assisting other people. And I keep saying to myself, that money comes and goes. I certainly have seen money come and goes over the last 55, 60, 56 years. And I'm 66 this Saturday. And
happy birthday!
Thank you very much. And it's great to be alive. It really is. And I got to tell you, if it wasn't for the squat rack, man, I probably would have went to jail or be dead or something.
Yeah.
I mean, I was this little kid smoking cigarettes, wearing a leather jacket, getting in problems in the neighborhood, and for some reason, the squat rack called me. I was given the opportunity to really feel what I feel. It never ceases to give to me. And I've also studied other artists, specifically singers, especially female singers, like Amy Winehouse. You know what Amy Winehouse is?
Yeah.
When I met her, I was in the UK, and I met her, and I'm thinking, okay, fine, this girl, she smokes Marlboro Reds and wears a leather jacket, reminds me of my ex-wife, Okay.
Yeah.
And I just sort of was busy, And then just recently, because of COVID, I had the opportunity to study her work. And I studied everything she did, every interview, every song she's written, and why. I'm like, oh my God, what a woman, what a girl, what a singer. She has so much pain, and she works from pain like a lot of us do. I did to a certain degree, but she expresses on stage her feelings, and oh, you go, hey, I know that feeling. I've been there too, and you just want to go up and hug her. And I think, what a wonderful artist. Too bad she joined the 27-year-old club and passed away.
Yeah.
Like so many other artists. But when I see Whitney Houston do a song bit before her death, I'm like, how do I do that? How do I do that on the bodybuilding stage?
Wow, yeah.
And every pose has to mean something. When I do a twisting back, it's got to be like Whitney or Amy belting out the song from the tip of their toes to the top of their head. You ever watch a girl sing like that? And, different girls. But Whitney Houston is one of the all. She's perfect. Amy Winehouse was sort of like human and perfect. But the God, you can see God in her, and you can see the human issues as well. And oh my God, I tell you, I've learned so much from studying other artists. All the arts overlap. All the arts overlap. Life is art, and even squatting, the tempo, the cadence, the timing, the breathing. It is art. You're hitting notes, the same things you would be on the guitar or the piano or singing. So, I've always loved Motown, Detroit. Going to school there, I was the token white guy. I liked that. I liked it. I liked learning about the different music than my neighborhood. And I went to different colleges. I went to Michigan State, Wayne State, UCLA, but when Wayne State, I learned a lot about Motown. It was right down the street, and I learned a lot about some of the girls were just stuck, just ending. Like the girl groups were no longer wearing the big Badu hair thing, like Amy copied that. So Amy Winehouse brought Motown back for me in my early beginnings in California or in Detroit. And Amy, to me, was what she just blew. Every time every night I listen to her music, I'm like, wow, she just makes me. You can see God, you can see humanness, you can see, hey, there's a plan. There's a plan here, and I can be quiet at night and I know what to do. That's why I tell these young kids, everybody's a kid to me, I'm 66, okay?
Yeah.
But when you're quiet, when I'm quiet, about 2 or 3 in the morning, and I turn off the old videos, I'm just by myself, I know exactly what to do for the rest of my life. Same thing I did when I was 9. But you have to be a vessel. You have to, I'm certainly not the message. I'm the messenger, okay? And I'm being given this passion, love, and joy for life and for art. And I have to tell somebody else about it. I have to teach other people this because somebody has to carry on when I'm gone. And, it's not about me. It's about the message. And so I have to create other priests, if you will, or other male and female priests, okay? Whatever. And to me, to have the right students, like Dorian was when he was in my classes all the time, the best thing you want to have happen in your career as a teacher is to have your student become better than you ever were. Okay? Most trainers, most coaches, they don't think that way. They think they're the best or they're good. And to see Dorian win all those Olympias and blow me away as far as his career, that's what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to carry that message to him. And it's clear. It's 100% clear to me. And even it's emotion when I tell you these things. And I'm like, wow, fighting back to emotion. Life's a pretty cool thing, Scott. It really, really is. It never ceases to amaze me. But imagine living life thinking like, if that coach that told me I could never be anything in life, imagine living the rest of my life going, I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
Of course, I took it the other way. I'm like, okay, coach, look, I'm good enough. In fact, I can do anything I want to do in this life. I want to be president, but I want to be a Mr. Olympia first, and I loved being associated with Arnold, Trump, and Vince McMahon, having them be my teachers. I'm like, wow, I learned from the best, and all of them had a spiritual sensibility. And a lot of bodybuilders don't understand. There's a picture that I use when I make appearances. I'm squatting in a Zen-like, looks like I'm praying in a Zen-like kneeling process, but I'm squatting and doing the Zen thing in front of the squat rack, which I do every time I squat. I warm up, I stretch. And by the way, it takes everybody my age says, "Oh, I can't squat anymore. It's over. It's too hard." It takes me. I shouldn't squat anymore either. It takes me an hour of stretching and warming up before I can do set number 1. But I can do it. God damn it, I can do it. Wow. And when I finished the set, I'm like, I did it. But it took me an hour.
Wow.
To convince my body and warm up to where, okay, my shoulders aren't killing me now. I'm sort of in the groove. I got that place, and the music happens. I'm like, what a thrill! What a thrill to nail a high rep squat. And that's my music. You know, that's my music. Amy Winehouse, Whitney Houston, Erykah Badu. There's somebody else I've been listening to a lot lately. Lauryn Hill. Oh my God. I never liked rap, but Lauryn Hill, man, she has a message from God about existence. And, you know, one of her songs is, she goes, you can get the money, you can get the power, but what are you going to do about the final hour? I'm like, wow. You got my attention.
That's great.
You know?
Yeah.
So I hear all these messages when I study more art. And COVID gave me the ability not to stay on a plane and go to all these countries. I had to stay home. So what am I going to do? I'm going to put on 50 pounds in the gym. I'm going to train like I used to train, not as often. My frequency is much lower. But I've studied all of these different artists. And I'm like, so like I'll be like at 12 or 1 or 2 in the morning going, wow, holy smokes, I never knew this. This exactly what, you know, I'm like seeing the world for the first time and through other people's art and applying it to myself, going, I felt that way. I felt this way even stronger now. And let me train somebody about this. So when I see a young female bodybuilder in Hungary, or when I see a young male bodybuilder that has that fire in their eyes, like, I don't care who says, well, I'm doing it. You know, I rarely see it. Rarely do I see a bodybuilder or an athlete that has that. I can do anything, and I'm going to make it happen no matter what. And I'm here. I mean, business. Usually, it's not. There's people want an easy way out. They want the easy exercises or the drug to get you there. But man, you know, I never found that drug. It's not that easy. But it's when you get in that zone and you know that God's helping you do the reps. Oh, I'm in all the way. And that's my religion. That's my art, my craft, my sport, my you know, and it's even in the 80s. It was the same way in the 80s. You know, and my training partner would say, you own this exercise. It's, you know, at rep 35. I'm like, okay, I'll take it, you know. And it was a gift. It was a gift from God. I mean, I trained hard, too. I didn't just walk around the squat rack. But I like the work ethic. I was raised with, you know, the Protestant work ethic. Like, work. If you work hard enough, you can get it. Now, not many people are raised. A lot of young kids aren't raised that way anymore. In Europe, they are, but not as much here. Everybody's looking for the hack. What's the hack? People, they want that training hack or the dietary hack or the drug hack. There is no hack other than what I'm explaining to you. And if you're able to get into what I'm explaining to you, this hack, you can do anything. And you realize, my God, now I'm 66 years old. Wish I had one more life. I think I'd do something completely different. Something else I'm not good at, like throw golf. I'm a terrible golfer, you know. But I got better, and I got better, and I got better. I took 10 years off of training and devoted my life to golf for a while. But I leave the course frustrated each time. You know, it's not like leaving the gym. You're high. Wow, life is great. It was a different mentality for me. And I like the country club, and I like the cognac and the cigars and stuff like that. But I didn't have the golfer mentality. And maybe, you know, but if I had one more life, you know, and if I knew what I knew when I was 9, every kid, man or woman, knew what they had and what we have at age 9. Man, we'd have a lot more presidents and a lot more world leaders, and not just the politicians. You know, well, I shouldn't get into politics right now. I'm sorry, I don't want to. I don't want to take you there, but you know, you've probably seen what my thought process. You know.
Yeah. Well, I like how you're touching on like the spiritual and the like your soul, like the expression of your soul through what you did. That's really cool to think about, you know. And I wish there was more video of your training, because I know there's a little bit, but like I wish that somebody would have captured, like, there must be so many epic workouts that you did that nobody saw, you know. Like, I mean,
some of these young kids in the gym, they come up to me and they Tom, I don't want to bother you, but you know, what did you think when that? And they asked me brief questions about those days. And I said, really, there's very little video representation of my workouts back in the 80s and late 70s. Video wasn't a big. We had no cell phones. We had nothing like that, you know.
Yeah.
So it was like you had to hire a video crew or something, and then even then it was distorted, and not real clear, you know. Which is an interesting thought, but. You know, that's what bodybuilding is to me. It's life. It's life giving. It is my religion, but it is my reason for existence. It's given me life, tremendous life, and on all the worldly things and even the unworldly things. So you know, it's hard to tell people this because not everybody is like you, and they go, "Oh yeah, I get it," you know. And people criticize me. You know, what's this? Why do you call it the altar? I go, if you're not connected with your higher power, go home. Go do another sport. It's not for you. Okay?
Yeah.
I mean, do something where you don't have to get as meaning, you know, where it doesn't mean anything. You know, but I tell you, I applied the same thing. I got involved in the corporate world for a while, and I applied the same mentality to, you know, understanding, learning computer systems. And you know, after about 10 years, inside of a good decade, man, I was nailing it. I was quicker, faster, and sharper than most 20 and 30-year-olds. And I got in the gym. I got in the office early, and I left late. And it was exciting, thrilling to me, just like the gym. And so I go, if this attitude works in the gym, it will work in business, and it does. And you know, it can't be. You can't make life. I should say, to me, it's a training camp. It's definitely a training camp for what's next, okay? Without getting too spiritual, if you will. But if you make the training camp everything, you lose track of, you know, what you're supposed to do, where you're supposed to be. You know, like, in other words, this life we have here and the money and the stuff is not as important as to what you're able to experience and understand and give to other people. We're supposed to give back, you know, and not just make. Now everybody wants to make money. What's the hack? Social media, it's all pretend anyhow. You know? And, I rarely see an athlete who has the guts that I want to see. When I do, I'm like, oh, let's go, you know. And there's 2 or 3 guys in Europe that and a couple girls that I work with. And I mean, I've worked with some young girls that are models. And they have this attitude. Wow, this is unbelievable. You shouldn't look this pretty and be this strong, you know. And it's exciting, and I love to see that, and I crave that. That's my reason for existence. You know, and guide me some more, Scott, because I can go too many different places with this.
Yeah. So I have This was just a kind of a random thing, but I've been talking a lot lately with Aaron Baker, and I just randomly said to him, because we had like this epic conversation, man, where I was like, he's amazing, and I just sent him a message though. I said, hey man, will you pray for me, you know, because I'm doing a podcast with Tom Platz and it means a lot to me, you know, like I'm really excited about it. And, you know, he's a super, you know, spiritual guy. And he's like, oh man, you know, me and Tom are really good buddies. And I worked with him, I guess he was part of that bodybuilding organization that you were running, right? Like, and so I'm just kind of interested in that.
Well, I needed somebody to be my assistant when I was doing this 18-hour course and giving the final exam. And, you know, I looked at certain people that were trainers that would be interested in being my assistant. I mean, Aaron was great. He loves this stuff. And he's an artist in his own right. Real also a drawing. And a guy that would do things that I could never imagine. But Aaron, he always, how do I say, he as good as he was physically, he never was, I didn't see him given the chance to be as great as he should have been with the physique and the mentality he had and the artistic favor that he was able to connect with. And I never fully understood why he didn't do better than me. Granted, he did well, and I was, but I love this guy, and I've often thought he should have been Mr. Olympia or close to it here,
Yeah.
And he had Scott. I remember him in the gym every morning at 7 o'clock. I'm like, oh my God, this guy has no idea how good he is.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I got to compete against these guys. And I remember thinking to myself, and this is a joke, okay?
Yeah.
I remember thinking to myself, if I concentrate too much on how good these guys are, I'm going to lose the show for sure. Because they're really good. So I can't concentrate on how good they are. They got to the point where I said, look, backstage, I don't care if God himself shows up to compete with me. It's my show, my stage.
Yeah.
That's a joke. It's a joke. But I had to be selfish. If I looked at somebody else like Aaron Baker or Robbie Robinson backstage, I walked out less than.
Yeah.
I had to walk on stage like, I own this place, the stage tonight, and let me show you how it goes. Let me show you what love and passion and joy in the gym. Let me show you what it's all about. Let me show you humbly how it goes according to me. And when I got confident in that, it's like, wow. Eventually I got to stop guest posting. I got to do something else. And it was tremendous living. And I loved being on stage every weekend. But I got to tell you though, like John Balick, who owned Iron Man magazine at the time, he would say to me, like, he lived down the street, and then he said, Tom, if you want to win the Olympia that bad, why don't you stay home more, not travel as much? And I'm like, no, I got to be on stage every weekend. I got to watch the girls scream. I got to see the guys go crazy. It was like being one of the Beatles or something. That was my mentality. Yeah. I got that when I was a little kid in Columbus, Ohio, and I was, in high school and in college, and I was way in the back with binoculars, and I watched all these guys, including Arnold, Franco, and Draper, and I'm like, it's like rock stars. It's like watching Michael Jackson or Lady Gaga or Amy Winehouse. Like, wow, there's mass hysteria. Nobody wanted to leave the audience back in the 80s. We were like, how do we get back to our hotels? We had to have security. And it was like, it was like being a superstar, celebrity, rock star person. And those days are gone. Now it's like, okay, Mr. Heath, you won again. Here's your trophy. Okay, and now let's go out to dinner.
Yeah.
There's no, and I think it's different for Big Ramy because in the Middle East, they are like rock stars and they give them that treatment and they really admire, the bodybuilding there. But it was just a different time, and they're all good times. No one time is better than the other. But sometimes I go, where did the love and passion, and the joy of doing this? What happened to that? Everybody's into science, and science is like, I was raised. I had to learn science. That was part of my degrees, and I taught exercise physiology, anatomy, and all that stuff. And science is good, but it's like. What I finally realized, Scott, and this is one of my real big revelations in bodybuilding, is psychology always trumps physiology. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. Because the mental aspect of all of this means more than the physical. Is that what you're saying? Like you said, it's your attitude.
Override. Yeah. And it's the joy and the love and the passion for doing it. My expectation and just my wonderment in this world, it's like in my sport, my psychology, my belief system, from a spiritual connotation, but my psychology, if you will, enabled my physiology to hyper function.
Yeah,
to do things that I shouldn't be able to do.
Yeah.
And back then, I did crazy training, workouts. But I was 25. Back now, people were 35. They, nobody trains that hard anymore. They just take substance to try to create the same metabolism at their later age. But for me, for us back then, it was like 20 milligrams of Winstrol and a shot of Deca a week, and let's train for the Olympia. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was it. But
Wow.
the training was like, oh my God, people would come in the gym. Like, I remember mentors going, holy shit, I thought we trained hard. They were helping me, you know.
Wow.
They would tell other people, to, you know, Tom, he's training all year long. And then when I showed up at Menster's condo in Palm Springs, and he was very kind to me back then, he goes, oh my God. He goes, I knew you'd do this. I knew you'd do it. The way you were training and the way you weren't laying around, like, you know, open weight for the last couple of months to get to, you were in shape and ready, training heavy all year long. It was like, wow. And now people don't train hard, you know. They sort of pump up and they take a lot of stuff and they have great genetics or limited genetics and they blame it all on genetics or it's just, as an old man, it seems empty to me a little bit. And I think everywhere I go, people want the love, the joy, and the passion. They want to see that again.
Yeah.
And I think even a lot of the top bodybuilders, when I lecture in Switzerland, they're like, Tom, we're taking less stuff now. We realize it. I think there's a time when you have to take less stuff and you get better results, which is true. And so now they're in the gym with me going, yeah, you know, and I can resemble what I did back in the 80s, but I can't do exactly the same thing, nor do I want to, you know. I think about it. I mean, I'm in guest posing shape right now.
Wow.
I'm not going to guest pose, but I am, you know. And I went from 160 to, you know, 210 and 205.
Wow.
I could, you know, I used to be 222 in the same kind of condition, but I'm like, it's just for me. And people, like, training partners, they go, why don't you publish this picture of you? Look at your condition. Look at the veins and the vascularity. People should see this. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to be an old man pretending to be modern, you know? And then when you show a picture of what you did through hard training, people think right away, oh, I could do that with drugs for sure. Platz is back on drugs. I'm like, oh, God. So it's almost like it's a private little celebration to have every day in the gym.
Yeah.
Or when I days when I train. It's not to be shown or I'm not going to go out and do what I used to do in the 80s and make a living for my body, but it's just the attitude, the love. The church, going to church is, you know, you ever see it where they have like a gospel music, where Whitney Houston comes from? Oh my God. Yeah. You know, they have a great church. You know, it's singing and dancing. That's what the gym is like for me. It's my celebration of life. Bodybuilding itself on the stage is a celebration. You know, I make it to the workouts, and I have so many people that I teach them, hey, today, this weekend is a celebration. Go show them what you did and how it goes according to you. And every pose has to mean something like a musical note to your song. And so I try to teach them a lot of those feelings. And, you know, it's hard to teach it, but sometimes people have it sort of naturally, and then they can take off on that standpoint. But it's not just building muscle. You know, building muscle is one of the least things that happens. Is the character development, the understanding of one's existence. Bodybuilding gives you so much more than just muscle. You know, just one small thing, really. Muscle comes and goes, by the way, but the permanent enhancement that you have inside, what it teaches you, never atrophies at all. Muscle can atrophy, but the mentality doesn't atrophy. So I could be 160 and have the same attitude as I do when I'm 205 right now. It came together because I have time. I have the bandwidth mentally to train again, because what else am I going to do? You know, I can't get out of it. And now it's like, you know, I have to do some more projects, do some, you know, internet training and stuff like that, and some seminars online. I've done all that stuff, but I like the human contact. I love the human contact. If I was a singing artist like Amy Winehouse, I'd want to go on stage every weekend just like she did. She was always touring, and seeing the energy in your audience's eyes. Wow. It's like walking on water. That's like standing next to God going, "Ooh, God, you believe this?" And, you know, and it's like I've had the opportunity to do that for years. Every weekend, I had the opportunity to really have 5,000 to 10,000 people say, "Okay, we're with you," and I invited them through my movement, my nonverbal communication, to go on the ride with me, like any other actor person does. And they would go on the ride with me, and at the end of the music, and they knew the music, and they knew the poses, and they would, you know, they would give so much to me. I'm like, God, I'm not even giving anywhere near what they're giving back to me. And it was like, that's the closest thing to God as an artist. If you can, you know, get into that mental framework and a spiritual framework, and really give back to people something that they cherish and what they want to do, or man, I think that's why I wasn't a priest. I think I can do the same thing as an athlete, as a bodybuilder, as an artist. And that's where I'm supposed to, I know that's where I was supposed to go. I'm supposed to teach now. And then, so it's much more than just building muscle to me and winning Mr. Olympia. In fact, early on, Scott, it was like, of course I wanted to be Mr. Olympia. I wanted to be the best. But, years and years later, it's like, I just want to be different. And I want to give everything I got. I didn't care about being the best. I just wanted to be my best. My best. When I look in the mirror on squat day, I look in the mirror, I'm like, okay, asshole, I'm going to kick your fucking ass. It's me against me.
Yeah.
How many other sports provide that? It's usually you against another human. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And bodybuilding, you gotta annihilate, you gotta come up, one up yourself every workout. It's like, what a challenge. For me, it was like, again, God gave me that understanding of training. And it was through that kind of training and through that kind of mental and psychological analysis that I was able to reap the benefits of life. And then now it's time to show those benefits and talk about those benefits. And one thing I do is, like, Chris Dickerson used to always say, you have the gift of gab, Tom. I'm like, thanks, that's a gift. I can talk about it. I can tell you what it's like to watch Robbie Robinson train back. He can't talk. He doesn't tell you what a beautiful, to this day, when I go into the gym and he's doing seated cable rows, I stop and honor and pause and watch him do the whole set. I'm like, oh my God, that's what a perfect movement for this guy. I emulated his back movements my whole career. To watch Amy, to watch an artist, to watch, the same thing. It's like, to watch somebody doing what they do so well and just glide through it like it's nothing, but yet have so much meaning, love, passion, and energy in. You're like, it takes your breath away. It takes your breath away. Again, that's when I said one time in an interview, it's not life isn't about how many breaths you take. It's about those moments that take your breath away. And that's life for me right now. Okay, I'm sorry, Scott. Did I hit some of the notes you wanted me to hit?
That's perfect. And it's amazing that you traveled so much, and that must have been such a great experience. But you were able to, pretty much everybody still agrees that you have the best legs ever. Nobody ever matched that, and it's crazy that you were able to do that while traveling so much. Like that's kind of crazy, because I don't know if you would have been as inspired to get that level if you would have, because it seems like maybe you could have developed more if you just like lived a boring life or whatever, but you're not the type that would have been maybe inspired by that.
Well, I've talked to Dorian a lot about this over the years. He would live, eat, and sleep. He would become a monk every year. And his friends didn't talk to him that much. His wives or girlfriends were like, dude, this guy's nuts. He would totally dive into his own self, his own existence, and then show up at the Olympia stage and be freaky as all hell. I admired that, but I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. And one thing about another gift that I had was like, I was more white fiber. I'm a power lifter. I'm a strong man.
Yeah.
And my frequency could be really stupid low.
Yeah.
I don't have to have a lot of these guys that are red fiber, endurance fiber, they have to train higher frequencies. I would train, once or 3 or 4 days a week. Boom, I'm on stage again. I come back home 3 or 4 days a week. Boom, I'm on stage again. I had plane tickets, 50, 60 plane tickets sitting on my desk, ready to go for each weekend. And it was like,
wow.
It was hard. But I would go to the gym. My Tony, my training partner in the gym back in the 80s. He'd be waiting for me at 7 a.m., 6:45. And every, Thursday night, I'm going to go home and pack, and I'm leaving tomorrow morning, Friday morning. I'm going to fly this place, that place, and come back home Sunday night after the seminar, and then, bam, I'm back in the gym, usually sometimes Tuesday morning. I need a little extra rest. But I loved that crazy lifestyle. It wasn't the best thing for relationships, because and I was always gone or recovering from going.
Yeah.
Getting ready to go or recovering. To be around, I could imagine my ex-wives to be around there. Like, granted, we had the stuff, but I was married to the gym. And it's like I don't have a lot left to. So now I realize how much I took from the stage, how much that I took from the gym, and now I'm like, oh, a real relationship, you have to give more than you take.
Yeah.
Oh, I never got that. You know, now I realize, oh, okay, I could be better at this. I could be a better giver. And I've been married 3 times, and now my life with Shaw, I'm like, oh, yeah, I should not be selfish right now. I should make her happiness should be more important than mine. And that's hard for me to do, being a selfish artist all those years.
Yeah.
But I see the meaning, and it's like you never stop learning. Sometimes you're a teacher, sometimes you're a student, forever. Okay? But the nice thing about traveling all over the world is I could train with low frequency, come back from a 4-month tour in Europe, and I'm better than I ever was.
Wow.
Okay?
That's crazy.
And I come in the gym, and there's a picture of Ferrigno. Look at my legs. We're in World's Gym one morning, early in the morning, because he was working as the Hulk, and I couldn't sleep because I was on European time. And I came in the gym, and I'm like hitting some leg shots, and Louis like, "What the hell muscle's that? I don't know. I never saw that muscle before." You know, it was like, and everybody in the gym was like, we're experiencing something that's otherworldly. It's unearthly.
Wow.
And it was like, wow. And and it was just me, and I knew it was a gift, but I loved the work part of it. The work part of it's like, eyeballs bleed, blood vessels would burst. The love, the work ethic was like, oh, I have to do that. That's part of it. That's what, but besides being taught by the very best teachers in the world, standing on their shoulders, the work ethic was given to me by my family, my dad. Just don't ever say you can't do something. And the coach to kick me in the butt and said I was nothing. I was like, okay, I can do anything, and not in an egotistical way, but just in the belief system way. And as long as you're connected to your higher power, I think you can do anything. And I always tell people, once you tap in the human spirit, there's nothing you can't do in this life. Nothing.
Wow.
And just like America was discovered from the human spirit.
Yeah.
These people were not where they came over on boats, 3 boats coming over to the New World. They thought the world was flat. And they're like, natives and Indians, and they created a whole world and a whole culture from away from Europe. I'm like, holy smokes! We're talking about human spirit. That's how civilizations are born. The human spirit, and so human spirit is like, you don't need to sleep, you don't need to eat. Everything goes right because you're in that zone. And that's what swagging's like for me. When I get in that zone and the Holy Spirit's with me, I'm like, this is not that hard at all.
Wow.
I'm getting so much help here. It's just I'll go along with it, God.
Yeah.
I'll go along. Thanks for your help, man. And just show me what I'm supposed to do. And he did. He said, I'm going to make you social. And I think I always tell these stories, and sometimes this one story I said, I think when God is making us, when He's creating us, we have a conversation. In other words, we know what He's thinking. He knows what we're thinking. He goes, I'll tell you what, in my dream, he goes, Tom, I just created this other guy, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I gave him a bunch of stuff that, I'm going to sort of put you in the same genre of life. But I'm not going to give you the same propensities, the same attitudes and qualities I gave him. I'm going to give you one thing that nobody on earth ever had. That's the propensity and the belief system to create the best legs ever, if you give it the work. And he goes, you're not going to remember this conversation in my dream, okay?
Yeah.
He goes, you're not going to remember this conversation when you're back on Earth. But when you're in your alone time and you have this tremendous feeling like you should be doing this, and you don't know why you're so compelled to do something, that's me talking to you. Follow that voice. And I believe everybody, if they're quiet enough, and if they can get quiet, they know what to do. And everybody on this earth has something they're better at than anybody else. You got to find out what it is. I was lucky enough to find out at an early age. But if people could be quiet and turn their cell phones off and get off Instagram and turn off their bells and whistles of all the technology type of stuff they have in their possession, and be quiet, and people can't. People can't. If you could meditate once a day, the answers come so loud and clear. It's like, it's obvious. It's like a loudspeaker in your ear going, this is what you're supposed to. You're convinced. I'm so convinced of what I'm supposed to be doing then and throughout my whole life. And now I'm like, wow, what a everybody can do this. Is my problem, and people don't want to do it. They're afraid of it. They think it's religious, and I'm against religion. You know, if you're not spiritual, man, spiritual is a very important part of existence. And people think that we're human beings having a spiritual experience. We're really spiritual beings having a human experience, you know?
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know. I'm sorry. I get like a preacher sometimes.
No, it's great. I love this stuff, man. It actually reminds me, because I got to talk to Fred Hatfield before, and he told me that, you know, his secret to squatting was that he had read a Bible verse where Jesus said to, like, go into your closet or something like that, like go in your closet, and and he said that's what he would do when he would squat. He's like, I would go into my closet and in the zone, and that was this place in his head that was, like you're saying, like this spiritual experience that he would be like totally connected to God, you know, and he could squat 1,000 pounds, you know.
More than he ever should have been. He squatted more than he ever should have been capable of doing.
Yeah.
From a physiological standpoint, from an anatomical standpoint, he just willed it. He had the will of God with him. In fact, he's a good friend of mine. He passed away, unfortunately. But I grew up. Oh, I can tell you stories about Fred, you know.
Yeah.
But he was very influential. He was the first, having multiple degrees in exercise physiology and coming to California and ignoring what everybody. I train with Arnold. I get small. I train every day, twice a day, every day, 6 days a week. I train with Arnold, high frequency. I got fat, smaller and fatter. So finally, I go, I can't do what Arnold does. I don't care if he's God. I can't do what he does.
Wow.
I got to do something different. So I took time off. He got bigger, stronger. Then I remember going on weekends with him. We didn't train on the weekends when we went to do exhibitions. I'd come back home bigger and stronger. He'd come back home puffed, deflated. You know, he needed to train often, frequent, all the time. And I was like, you know, just putting the 150s in my hand, doing dumbbell work again, going, now I feel better than I did last week. This is great. I needed the rest. So, but Fred was very influential. He was the first guy that ever said to me, and, you know, he's from the halls of academia, he's from my academic life. And he would, you know, we talk about Golgi tendon organs and stuff like that, which I was raised with, you know, exercise physiology. I never really bothered to apply it to bodybuilding, really, for some reason. But Fred got a hold of me in the gym. He says, Tom, everybody's been criticizing the way you train for years, saying it's not correct. It's not like Arnold. I'm here to tell you everything you have done, your whole philosophy is absolutely correct, and I'll tell you why. And then I'm like, really?
Wow.
I knew I had an instinct that was right. And then he owned ISSA. He goes, Tom, I want you to teach this, or teach for me. I want you to teach every weekend, and what you know, all about is the same, you know, exercise physiology and all that stuff. And so that's how it came to be. And then, of course, when I was working for Vince McMahon, the WWE, I needed Fred to work for me. So I called Fred. I need you. You know, and so we do this our whole lives. He's a little bit older than me. He was teaching me, and quite often he says, Tom, I have no problem working for you. Whatever. So we switched positions. He was the boss. I was the professor, and I was the boss, and he was the guy developing concepts and nutritional products. He was tremendous inspiration. He had something that I've never seen before. He was just a belief system, an attitude. I would from him, yes, I would go into this room. You go into the room where you can't stay there very long. It's like scuba diving. You can only stay down a certain amount of time. But when you're there, wow, anything is possible. You know, and that's squatting. Squatting for those, you know, that period of time is like going into that room or going into the closet. It's like, you know, closet maybe had other connotations, but there's a special place you go, and when you go there, you know, you see it all. It all makes sense. And then when you go on stage and have the response from all the things you did in the gym, it's like you see God. I mean, I actually could, like, wow, you know, it's not me. It's just something coming through me. I'm the messenger. I'm the vessel for this power source. If it's not God, I don't know what it is. You know, I don't. It overwhelms me every time I competed at Olympia, and then every weekend it overwhelmed me when I had, you know, the fanfare and the fun and the excitement and the crowd. You know, I loved being sometimes my wife doesn't like the word entertainer, but an actor. You have the most muscle in the world. If you have the most muscle in the world, you have to be able to sell it on stage like an actor. You have to be able to be a businessman and market yourself as a brand. You have to be the politician. You have to be the diplomat, traveling to all these countries, shaking hands, talking about what we love and the meaning of it all. And that's So now I'm still, all my old buddies are all the old girlfriends and all the old guys they have kids and they got remarried. Kids have kids. I went to the IFBB European Championships and I'm around all my old friends. Like, wow, we're sharing stories from the old days. And, I'm like, wow, it's incredible. And it's just the energy associated with that and the people. And they felt it. They wanted to be around it. It's the same thing when I guest post. People wanted to be, the same thing for me when I wanted to be around Arnold. He had this energy. I'm like, whoa, I got to be around this energy. When I'm being around Trump himself, it's the same way. I'm like, wow, being around this guy is like, it's like you have a connection to the spirit,
Yeah.
And
I remember actually in that when we did the personal training thing, you said that you could feel Arnold coming from blocks away down the street.
Yeah. I mean, even when somebody looks at you, like I always tell the girls, something you're walking down the street and you have a dress on, you think somebody's staring at you, and you turn around and they are.
Yeah.
How do you know that? How do you know that?
What is that?
What did you feel?
Yeah.
There's energy. We all have this energy, and once you tap into it, whether it be investments, business, or sport. And sport to me is thrilling, but I can see why business is thrilling as well. I can see the way Trump handles a lot of his stuff. I don't think he was that. I don't know whether you're pro-Trump or not, but I think early when he was president, I don't think that. I think he just wanted to see if he could pull it off. He was sort of a fun game for him. And then when he became president, he's like, wow. And I think God said to him, you can do stuff here now. You can be a real leader. What do you say, Don?
Yeah.
And I really think he came into his own, because after he became president, for 3 years into it, he wasn't the same entrepreneur that I knew back in the 90s. He was like a leader, and he talked about God, and he would go visit third world countries where they, what do you call it, those China, and he would hang out with these guys from China and Russia, and they respected him.
Yeah.
Because he's crazy like that.
Yeah.
We needed a guy like that. And now Biden is like, I'm sorry, I don't want to, you may feel differently.
Should you lift heavy? Should you do heavy weights for low reps, or should you do high reps with low weight? It's the ongoing dilemma and the saga of, I guess in my case, the last 50 years. In any event, the answers have always been there. There's been so much information and articles and discussion and all that stuff and science and, science tells us you should train somewhere between 50% to 85% of your 1 RM. That's where you should train. Okay, I agree with that. I personally think there's just too much science and not enough instinct and not enough art of bodybuilding and not enough. But everybody's into science and engineered nutrition and all this nonsense. But basically, I agree. You should train between 50 to 85% of your 1 RM. That's where how much weight you should use. Ideally, the problem is you've got to do heavy weights for a lot of reps. I'll repeat that. You've got to do heavy weights for a lot of reps. You can't just do heavy weights for low reps all the time and do light weights below 50% of your 1 RM. You can't do that. That's not going to work. The answer is no. The results are 0. Okay, so basically, you've got to train and condition yourself to do heavy weights for a lot of reps. It takes time. It takes years. It takes a career. It doesn't happen in 60, 90 days, a year, 2, 3. It takes a lifetime. And that's where I think most modern-day bodybuilders go wrong, fitness enthusiasts. They think it's going to all happen today. The technique will be learned in 20 days, 30 days. It takes a lifetime of practice. The old weightlifters, they worked on broomsticks for hours. The technique was a religious experience. It wasn't just, here's how you do it, done. But getting into what I wanted to talk about, and not shying away from that, you've got to do, time and tension. Time and tension are the two key factors. The heavyweights, there's a lot of tension, but not enough time. The lightweights, there's a lot of time, but not enough tension. So that's why science tells us you should train between 50 to 85% of your 1RM. There's opportunity for time and tension. If you just lift heavy all the time, though, if you do the 3s and the 5 reps and, the 8 reps and the 6 reps, you'll get stagnant. You might get somewhat of a response, but it's not enough. It's not enough to really put it together and really build some quality muscle. Most of the time you see powerlifters, and they're extremely strong. Nervous systems are extremely conditioned, and they know how to lift and what muscles to use. A lot of times we see powerlifters squat in the gym in the morning. I train with them, and their legs are tiny, but they're squatting 800 pounds. So what I'm getting at is a lot of hip flexors and buttocks and lower backs that are used. But in order to, to really train, you've got to do some heavy weights and for a lot of reps, as I said. So essentially, you have to focus on the 3s, the 5s, the 8s, the 6s sometimes, but more often you should focus on the 15s, the 25s, the 35, and the 40 reps. Yes, 40, 50 reps even per set. And not just a pump weight, not 50% or below 50% of your 1RM, a good solid weight. And this is the dilemma, this is this problem, and you can only train for this, and it does take years. So, having said that, it's important to really think about training from this aspect. I mean, usually an ectomorphic person, more of a red fiber person, can train higher reps, but they have to do, they don't have to, but they can have the, they have the availability and the possibility of training more often. They can do higher reps with more frequency. A mesomorphic person, a mesomorphic individual can, is good at the heavyweights, but they can't train as often. Their frequency has to be lower. There's only so many things you can alter: volume, intensity, frequency, and then workload. There's 4 things you can vary. And then from there you can get into, half reps, quarter reps, partial reps, static reps, partial statics, negatives, forced positives, and forced negatives, forced positives, and all that stuff in between. And you can vary the cadence and the tempo and all that stuff, and how fast you move the bar, the speed of the rep, all of this stuff, acceleration. There's a lot of things you can vary, but still, when it comes down to it, the reps are more important than the heavyweights. I'll repeat that. The reps are more important than the heavyweights. For instance, when I first came to California, we did a lot of heavy stuff back in Michigan, and, squattings and deadlifts and, big bench presses and all that stuff. But arms was always my personal dilemma. When I first came out to California in 1978, through my whole time, my whole tenure, training in Gold's Gym and World's Gym, I don't think I ever saw some of the greatest bodybuilders with the greatest arms in the world do more than a 45-pound dumbbell. I never saw Arnold use more than a 45-pound dumbbell. Some of the greatest arms in the world, the world's ever seen. And, he most of the time, used a 35, 40-pound dumbbell. He would, in the exercise of choice, the squat for biceps, was a seated dumbbell curl. The inclined dumbbell curl alternating each arm and supinating and pronating. That was the squat for biceps. The squat for triceps was the push down. Simple stuff. It gets so complicated now. Everybody wants to do a magical movement. The magical movements is what I just listed. But the reps have to be done. I mean, on biceps, I can remember doing 5 and 10 minute sets with a 35-pound dumbbell. This is what it takes if you're training, for reals, or maybe you're just carving up and taking some substance and you get pumped up and you get sort of full looking, but that's not really the acquisition of real cellular muscle. It's just you're sort of a bloat pump person. But that's sometimes what bodybuilding is to a lot of people. I get that, I understand that, but it can be more and should be more. Staying with the plan, reps versus heavy, I mentioned that reps are far more important than heavy weights, but you've got to do both, and you've got to do reps for a lot of weight for reps. It does take time to get there, yes, as I alluded to that. But by practicing on one day, doing the lower reps, between 5s and 8s and 10s and 12s, I consider lower reps, it will allow you to train on the other day with over 15 reps a set, 25 and 35 and 40 and 50 reps a set. You have to do both, but as you go heavy, it makes the lightweight day possible, and as you go the lightweight day, it makes the heavy day possible. They fit hand in hand. They blend, and that's really the secret or the message of this podcast. You need to do both, but it's more important to do reps, as I mentioned. Okay. That is simply it. And I hope you've followed what I was saying and it made sense to you. But the reps are more important than just the heavy weights. You see a lot of powerlifters that don't look that strong but are. And again, the nervous system is trained, and they know how to train the major muscles of the body to move the weight, not the muscles that really bodybuilders would like to build. Time and tension. Actin and myosin sliding. If you really want to get into the science, when there's time and tension, there's more actin and myosin sliding. There's not enough time to do that when you're just doing heavy weights. However, you can you can train for, as I mentioned, you can train to lift heavier weights for a lot of reps, and it does take time, as I alluded to and stated. Okay, I think that's the message for today. In fact, that is the message for today. And I hope in some way
talk about the risk by lifting too heavy.
Well, one thing you should not do is train heavy all the time and take super maximum risk. I mean, there is a risk involved with any exercise. If there's not a risk involved with an exercise, it's probably not worth doing. However, there's a benefit to risk ratio that you're always assessing in training. I mean, you really shouldn't take any undue risk all the time without a calculated degree of success. I mean, I did just say, of course, if there's not some risk within an exercise, it's not worth doing. I mean, squat is hard to do. There's a risk involved, but it's also worth doing because if it's done correctly and properly with good technique, you will reap the benefit. But too heavy all the time doesn't allow. It does encourage perfect technique, but a lot of times your technique will vary from rep to rep, and if it's too heavy, it can cause injury, and that's what we don't want to do. We don't want to train heavy all the time and take any undue risk, but there is a risk involved in weight training, period. There's a risk involved in crossing the street. You do have to take some risk, and exercise has to have some risk to be successful, and otherwise it's not worth doing, yes, but how much risk you're willing to take is the question, and is the concern. Too much risk, too heavy, too often, or too many exercises doesn't produce the desired result from a cellular point of view, muscle cell point of view. Plus, it's too risky, and it's not worth doing, because if you get injured, then you can't train, and it's over anyhow. So I would suggest being very careful in terms of how much risk you take, even though there is an inherent risk in every exercise, it's beneficial. That benefit to risk ratio is something you have to look at. We've talked a lot about intention and attitude and having your life pass in front of your eyes over the last weeks. You don't just go to the gym and do the required number of reps and leave. You have to give, demand, focus, insist, create from within. You have to conjure it up. You have to go after it. You have to make it happen. It's not just going to happen by itself because you did the required number of reps. It's like an artist. You can do they do all kinds of things with a brush and the colors, but eventually, you have to create something from within. The energy comes from within, not from the outside. It comes from within. Even though you're doing the weights and moving the weight, you have to have some kind of mental process going on to where you're creating something and it connects the brain to the muscle. If that makes sense. That is probably it for today. It's late here, but I wanted to relate to you the importance of, or the meaning between reps and heavy weights. But with continued training, as I mentioned earlier on in the podcast, in having heavy days and having light days, eventually you'll be able to basically do heavier and heavier weights for more reps, and that's the key. That is the key. And I wish you the best of success in your gym quest. But even though you're doing the reps and the sets progressively, demand it, see it happening before it happens, create it. You have to create it from within and make it happen. And if it doesn't happen, it has to be to the point to where your life depends upon it, because if you don't think that way, you won't get the results. Your life depends upon it. Whether it's when you go to the gym, it's not just a little exercise here and there. Your life depends upon it. Thank you very much.